20 years ago, a woman's life was shattered when her ex-husband vanished without a trace, taking their 2 young twin daughters with him. For years, she searched relentlessly, her life becoming a testament to a mother's undying hope. But as the trail went cold and the years turned into decades, that hope faded into a quiet, permanent ache of loss. Then, one morning, everything changed. A knock at the door shattered the silence of her empty home. When she opened it, she was met with the faces of her children, now grown women. But the story they told of where they had been and the shocking reason their father had stolen their lives was a secret so bizarre and so dangerous it would plunge their reunion into a new and terrifying kind of mystery. To understand this incredible story, we must first go back to the year 1993. Our story's protagonist, a woman we'll call Amy, was a young mother living in a quiet suburban town. She had 2 beautiful, identical twin daughters, just 5 years old. But her marriage to their father, a man we'll call Richard, was falling apart. He was a man with a brilliant mind, but he was also becoming increasingly paranoid and controlling. He was obsessed with fringe political theories and had a deep, growing distrust of the government and modern society. Their disagreements grew more intense, and Amy, fearing for the safety and stability of her daughters, made the difficult decision to file for divorce and seek sole custody. Richard, seeing this as the ultimate betrayal, made a dark and chilling threat. He told her, "If you try to take my children, you will never see them again." In August of 1993, a judge granted Amy sole custody of the twins. Richard was granted supervised visitation. The day after the court's decision, Richard was scheduled to pick up the girls for a weekend visit. It was the last time Amy would see them for 20 years. He never brought them back. When he didn't return, Amy's frantic calls went unanswered. She went to his house, but it was empty. He had cleared out his bank accounts, quit his job, and simply vanished, taking the 2 5-year-old girls with him. The initial police investigation was massive. The F.B.I. was called in, and the case of the missing Benson twins, as we will call them, became a high-profile parental kidnapping. Their faces were put on milk cartons, on posters in post offices, and featured on national news programs. But Richard was clever. He was a ghost. He used his intelligence to create new identities, to stay on the move, and to live completely off the grid, leaving no paper trail for the authorities to follow. For Amy, the years that followed were a living nightmare. She became a detective in her own right, a mother on a desperate, all-consuming quest. She followed every false lead, interviewed every person who had ever known Richard, and spent her life savings chasing down sightings in different states that always turned out to be dead ends. The not knowing was a form of torture. Were her daughters safe? Were they happy? Did they even remember her? As the years turned into a decade, and then 2, the official investigation went cold. The world moved on, but for Amy, time was frozen on that August day in 1993. Her home became a shrine to her lost children, their bedroom kept exactly as they had left it, a perfect time capsule of a childhood that had been stolen. Now, we return to the present day. Amy, now a woman in her 50s, is in her home when she hears the knock at the door. She opens it to see 2 young women in their mid-20s, and she knows, instantly, she is looking at the faces of her long-lost twin daughters. The reunion is a storm of emotions, shock, disbelief, and an overwhelming tidal wave of joy and relief. She pulls them into her arms, and for the first time in 20 years, her family feels whole again. But as the initial powerful emotions begin to subside, a new set of questions hangs heavy in the air. The twins, though now safe, are cautious and guarded. They speak in quiet, measured tone. They carry with them the weight of a life lived in the shadows. Amy, desperate for answers, gently asks the question that has haunted her for 2 decades. Where have you been? The story the twins begin to tell is not one of a normal life on the run. Their father, Richard, had not just been hiding from the law, he had been hiding from the entire modern world. He had raised them in complete and total isolation, in a series of off-the-grid cabins and remote, self-sufficient compounds, far from any town or city. They never went to a real school. They never had friends their own age. Their entire world was their father and his increasingly paranoid anti-government ideology. He taught them that the outside world was a dangerous and corrupt place, that they were being hunted, and that he was the only one who could protect them. But the most shocking part of their story was how they finally escaped. It wasn't a simple act of running away. Their father had been part of a small, secretive network of like-minded survivalists and anti-government extremists. It was this network that had helped him stay hidden for all those years, and it was from within this network that a secret ally had emerged, a man who, for reasons of his own, decided to help the two young women escape the grip of their father and find their way back to their mother. The twins' return was not just a reunion. It was the beginning of a new, even more complex mystery. As the three women sat in the quiet living room, a space that had been a shrine to a memory for 20 years, the true, complex, and dangerous story of the twins' lost life began to unfold. They spoke of a childhood spent in a state of constant transit and high alert, a world of shadows and secrets, all orchestrated by their father, Richard. They described a life of paranoia, where they were taught that the outside world was an enemy, that the government was a tyrannical force, and that they were constantly being hunted. Their education came not from schools, but from their father's own library of survivalist manuals and anti-government texts. They learned not about pop culture and history, but about how to live off the land, how to cover their tracks, and how to remain invisible. Their father, they explained, was part of a loose but dedicated network of like-minded individuals, a subculture of extremists and survivalists, who had dropped out of a society they despised. It was this network that had provided him with the resources, the fake identities, the cash, the remote, hidden properties to stay a ghost for 2 decades. This brings us to the deep and often misunderstood world of the American patriot and survivalist movements. In the early 1990s, a series of high-profile standoffs between federal agents and armed citizens, such as the events at Ruby Ridge in 1992 and Waco in 1993, fueled a powerful wave of anti-government sentiment in the United States. A growing number of people came to believe that the federal government was a corrupt and tyrannical entity, and they began to prepare for what they saw as an inevitable societal collapse. They formed militias, stockpiled weapons, and established remote, self-sufficient compounds deep in the American wilderness. It was a world of profound distrust, a culture that operated in its own parallel reality, completely divorced from mainstream society. It was this secret, paranoid world that had been the twins' only home for 20 years. As the twins spoke, Amy's heart ached for the childhood they had been denied, but her grief was mixed with a growing sense of dread. There was more to their story, a darker secret they were still hesitant to share. She saw it in their guarded eyes and their careful, measured words. She asked them about the man who had helped them escape. They explained that he was a member of their father's network who had grown disillusioned with Richard's increasingly erratic and dangerous behavior. He had secretly provided them with the resources and the plan to finally break free and find their mother. Then, Amy noticed it. A small, distinct, star-like symbol tattooed on her daughter's arm, which she quickly tried to cover. When Amy asked what it was, her daughter's face went pale. It was a symbol of the network, she explained, a mark that all members carried. The story was no longer just about a parental kidnapping, it was about a deep and dangerous indoctrination. But the final, most terrifying piece of the puzzle was yet to come. The twins revealed that their father had been involved in far more than just paranoid rhetoric. He was a key figure in the network's criminal activities, and they had proof. There was, they explained, a tape recording, a hidden confession from their father detailing his crimes and implicating others. He had hidden it, years ago, in the false bottom of their old childhood toy chest, which was still in their untouched bedroom upstairs. With their hearts pounding, the three of them went up to the room that had been a perfect, dusty time capsule for 20 years. They found the old toy chest. At the bottom, under the faded stuffed animals, they found the false panel, and beneath it, wrapped in oilcloth, was a small micro-cassette tape. With trembling hands, they put the tape into an old player Amy had in her office. The voice that filled the room was Richard's, cold, methodical, and chilling. For the next hour, they listened as he detailed his involvement in a series of criminal acts. The tape was his insurance policy, a piece of leverage against the other members of the network. But for his daughters, it was now their key to true freedom. With this undeniable evidence in hand, Amy and the twins went back to the FBI. The discovery of the tape transformed the 20-year-old parental kidnapping case into a major, active domestic terrorism investigation. Armed with the names, locations, and plans detailed on the tape, federal agents were able to launch a series of raids, dismantling the dangerous network that had harbored a fugitive and his stolen children for 2 decades. In the end, the story of the Benson twins' return is one of almost unbelievable resilience. It is a story of 2 young women who were stolen from the world, raised in a shadowland of paranoia and extremism, but who held on to a core of their own identity, a quiet strength that allowed them to finally break free and reclaim their own life. For their mother, Amy, it was the end of a 20-year nightmare and the beginning of a new, difficult, but hopeful chapter of healing, of getting to know the incredible, strong women her lost little girls had become. It is a profound testament to a mother's undying hope and to the unbreakable bond that, even after 2 decades of silence, finally guided 2 daughters back home.